So can you kind of tell us a little bit more about like how this project came into being and what was the journey to get there?
You brought up some good points with the whole physical brick and mortar stores. Like they were great while they were around, right? For these onboard mechanisms to bring more people into the community. One of the big things that we focus on ever since we launched is how can we grow, how can we scale, and that thesis for us was we're always going to have to kind of look outside of the ecosystem to onboard more people to the space. That was kind of my own thesis on how it would continue to grow. If we were always aiming for kind of this recycled liquidity, it would never really work out. And it was great while Solana Spaces was around. We were able to kind of, again, onboard a lot of new people to the project, to the community, and introduce a lot of people to what we were working on. Unfortunately, Solana Spaces shut down about 5-6 months ago. And it was kind of, we were kind of aware that it was going in that direction. They weren't really getting funding from too many participants, other projects, businesses within the ecosystem. So once that happened for us, that kind of killed off that vertical for us, at least in terms of fashion. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and pivot in terms of, okay, how can we focus on more contributions that are going to help Web3 as a whole? And for us, what that meant was focusing more on Web3 infrastructure, focusing more on building out products that are going to help us grow within Web3, as opposed to, again, just mostly focusing on onboarding. So with that in mind, we started looking at a lot of other ecosystems, places that we could, again, continue to grow and scale out, places we could actually build infrastructure that was going to help the ecosystem grow. And for us, that meant, looking at open source contributions. And with that being said, we ultimately landed on Alice Zero. We spoke to a lot of other networks at the time. We spoke to Polygon, we spoke to Sui, Aptos, Near, a few other ones as well. And ultimately, Alice Zero is kind of where we landed. With that being said, we, again, want to take it back to, again, how can we actually help this ecosystem grow and thrive? And for us, that meant, again, focusing on open source contributions. With the governance platform we came or idealized, that was more or less meant to be that standard for NFT ecosystems, or the NFT ecosystem itself. How can we create a platform that's going to allow projects to keep their community in line with what they're working on, foster transparency of what they're working on, as well as allow their community to have that input to say, this is what I think you should build. So for us, that meant Apes Across Worlds, which is, again, the product that's on top of the governance platform that we're building. So that'll only be around 220 assets. But the idea is to bring a bunch of builders, visionaries, contributors from all across Web3 to this ecosystem, where they can actively contribute to helping expand that ecosystem.
Those are some cool tools that you're building. How is those tools going to catalyze growth and innovation for that L1? Like kind of break it down a little bit more in layman terms, in terms of, how these projects all tie together.
Absolutely, yeah. So the whole core thesis of expanding, Web3, at least when it comes to NFT ecosystems, we really went, when we were at the drawing board, we're essentially looking at a lot of big ecosystems now, ecosystems like Ethereum, ecosystems like Solana, and looking at which products really kind of catalyze their NFT ecosystems, and which projects really help those grow. So on Ethereum, one of the big projects that we saw that was a smaller concentrated community was NounsDAO. And NounsDAO, what they've achieved in such a short time is they've essentially proliferated NounsDAO across all of Web3. They were essentially a project that really helped the ecosystem grow. And we took a lot of lessons from that. We looked at other small communities like Proof Collective, which were also instrumental in getting that NFT ecosystem expanding and grow as well. And modeled a lot of, again, the governance platform after what we could do in terms of creating tools that were going to help communities contribute. And that's essentially what we saw, like, in terms of friction when it came to these smaller concentrated communities that wanted to grow and expand. Is a lot of the communities wanted to contribute, but they just didn't have the tooling to do so. And that's really that first problem that we aimed to solve. We wanted to create something that was very frictionless, something that incentivized community contribution, and something that allowed the community to actively see what the project was kind of going towards, what vision they're building towards. So again, we also looked at Solana, looked at some of the smaller communities on Solana, things that were very prevalent in the early days prior to Solana experiencing its explosive growth. And that was also a big tool set that we saw missing from these smaller communities, was the tooling that would allow the community to actually say, this is what I think y'all should do, this is why I think y'all should do it, and this is essentially everyone else, kind of backs this idea. Other ways within, you're using like blockchain infrastructure, and I know you kind of talked on like a couple of those different points, but I also know that you probably have some things in that roadmap that people can be really excited about. I taking it back to season one for Just Ape, on Solana, we created this whole loyalty program, as I mentioned earlier, which essentially all holders had to do was, they go stake their assets, they get distributions of tokens over the sense of the whole season, which essentially allowed them to burn these tokens for tangible items. There was other things that were like raffles. We gave away like a $10,000 Triumph bike, which is pretty awesome. So anyways, we had this amazing season one, and one of the biggest lessons we learned after season one was, sure, like everyone likes all this free stuff from this rewards program. It's great, but they want something a little bit more. They want to be engaged. And as you mentioned, they want that sense of ownership. And moving forward, that was also tied into this next platform that we're building, is how can we keep people engaged on a daily basis? How can we keep them coming back? How can we make them feel like their voice actually matters? And that really came into full circle with the platform is, with the governance platform, obviously every holder of every single ape has one vote. So the more apes you hold, the more votes you have. That essentially allows you to kind of leverage your voice in a way to say, this is what I think we should do. When you're putting proposals forward, you can kind of go ahead and basically our method of actually taking apart these proposals is you need to have everything down from team to finances to everything that's fully fleshed out. Again, taking the nouns model and kind of putting it on overdrive, because we also want to tie in a lot of social dynamics, right? It goes without saying that Web3 also lives on crypto Twitter. And if you don't have that presence, you're not making noise about what you're building, then really no one's going to care. So I ultimately say it kind of came into, again, looking at how can we tie in social dynamics to this? How can we also incentivize these kind of participants to actively contribute? So we also kind of wrapped in an achievement system into our governance platform that allows holders to look at certain metrics of things that or kind of metrics that they've hit within the community itself. Things like signing in every day, things like making a certain amount of proposals, making a certain amount of votes. And we tied in some of our physical products as well into these achievements as well.
The views and opinions expressed on Edge of NFT reflect solely those views and opinions of the show hosts and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information available on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of those links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.